Welcome to the Free Culture Sports Show. As usual, we have a info-packed show today, so let's go ahead and jump in. We are still looking for fans from Aston Villa, Everton, Hull, Manchester City, Newcastle, and Sunderland, and we are marking off the list today: Burnley, Leicester, and QPR. Before we do that, though, I just want to mention that we are on Patreon, and it's just patreon.com/FCSS. So if you want to contribute to the show, you can do that. Also, you can find us on Twitter at @BoneSawOrigins_Origins and Doug Sportazine, or at Doug Sportazine. I also briefly want to mention that Evan has a nice write-up of the college gridiron preview for week 8, and focuses on.
Starting halfway through the season.
Yeah, well, that was one thing I was going to ask, if that was going to be an attempt at a weekly column.
It's hopefully a preview and a review. Getting the review out on Sundays and the previews out on hopefully before Saturdays, but just thought I'd take care of it this morning.
Fantastic. And depending on what happens, and I guess that's some foreshadowing there. We should have a couple of gridiron shows towards the end of the season on this show. So if you want to check back in late November, if that's your thing, then we should have that. So the foreshadowing was, you have talked about doing a weekly show. So we do this basically every other week. We move things around to deal with our schedule, but it averages out 26 shows a year, so every other week.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really want to spend time talking about what that show might be right now, but I just wanted to throw out to the listeners, what would you like if we're adding another show into the mix? How long would you want it to be? What content would you want to be? I mean, obviously Evan's going to have, do something that he wants to do, but I'm sure that he take your input into account.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I would like. I guess more than anything, the inspiration is the BS report, and the focus changes every single week, but he also has his interest. Bill Simmons has his own interest in mostly the NBA, but he also talks about gridiron during the season. So just whatever he wants to talk about, and the guests that he has on, he just talks to them about what they're interested in, and that's kind of the vibe that I want to have. If somebody wants to join, we'll just talk about whatever they're interested in. If not, I'll just talk about whatever I'm interested in for the week.
Okay, cool. So that's the first that you had told me about that. So
well, there you go, world breaking news right there.
Right, and there you go. So I also you answered this in the text, but maybe I didn't answer the right question. So I was thinking about whether or not I should get FIFA 15. You didn't give a glowing review, and I've been thinking about how dissatisfied I've been with FIFA 14. Now I've been going through I'm going to finish up this campaign, and the Ultimate Team works really well, except that I had some internet connectivity issues. But the problem with the career mode is it's just so slow getting from one section to the air. I mean, it seems like something so simple. It's not processing. I mean, I don't know what it's doing in the background to go from one win to the next. It's so slow. But I think if they didn't fix that in FIFA 15, I think I might just skip it. So that's really sort of the question that I'm asking. Skip it, or I know you've got it for the 360. Mm-hmm. Do you think it would have been better to wait for, what's it called, the Microsoft One or something like that?
Well, I think a lot of the issues that you had with it, and that I've seen too, I mean, this goes down to when there was a throw-in, and there was this huge time delay. If they had to, basically, you couldn't skip if there was a sub or a throw-in. They've completely revamped whatever they did for that situation. If there's a throw-in and it's kicked into the stands, it's immediately cut to somebody about to throw the ball in. There's no wait time at all.
That's not actually what I mean. I mean not in the game. So when you're when you're like managing your team and you're like going between the like season tab and the transfer tab, it is just so god awful slow, and I just don't understand why. That seems like something, it's got to be doing something in the background for it to be so slow, or maybe it's just a PlayStation problem. Maybe you never experienced that.
I did somewhat in 14, but as far as 15, it seems like every little thing about wait time and it seems like everything about that's been fixed one way
Okay.
or another. Now, I would still probably, in your situation, hold off until the PS4, the Xbox One, or the next gen, just because there's so much that are in those games that aren't in this. But those games might also have some of the same drawbacks that FIFA 14 have or had. Um, I don't know. I doubt they
Right.
do because it's on a new system.
Right. Yeah. Okay, yeah, for anybody that doesn't care about the FIFA series, I apologize because that was really for my own personal edification. But I thought it might be interesting for people to know, and that's why I figured we'd talk about it on here. So now on to the main event. We'll start with Burnley. I don't know, do we have these in alphabetical order? We do have them in alphabetical order. So
Mhm.
Burnley up first. Um, so my overall impression, which I you know, thought about after your impression, which was that they were going to get relegated. And I didn't want to just say also that's my impression because they're sitting at the bottom of the. No, they're not sitting at the bottom of the table. They're tied on points at the bottom of the table with 4 points with Newcastle and QPR. Um, and Newcastle and QPR are in such disarray. Maybe they get things in order and they can not be relegated. But if things stay the same with QPR and Newcastle, well, and with Burnley, those teams are getting relegated.
Mm.
Right now I can't see any of the other 17 teams dropping in there, and I can't see them doing anything to get out. And honestly, I can't see Burnley going out and getting a striker with enough quality to keep them from going down. I mean, and not only do they need a striker, they need to be able to get the striker the ball. And so I just don't see them being able to do enough in the transfer window not to go down. The
Mhm.
only thing that might save them is some other team totally collapsing. I don't know what team that is. Maybe it's even Everton. Maybe their early season struggles, like just maybe they sack Martinez and like it turns into a crap
Mm.
show. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be a. I don't think anybody really. I don't feel that coming.
I don't either, but I'm saying that's the thing that I think would have to happen for them not to get relegated. Something just totally unforeseen. So
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, just watching the little bit that I've watched of Burnley, they just look outclassed everywhere. I mean, they just don't look like they really belong in the Premier League. And even some of these other teams that, I know that Newcastle and QPR are in disarray, but there's times where they can at least still somewhat look like they belong. And everything I've seen from Burnley, they just suggest that they're not a Premier League team. And
and,
I don't think you can fix that.
yeah, and you look at the roster and you think QPR or Newcastle belong in the Premier League.
Yeah.
You don't look at Burnley and you think that. So I think if they had 7 draws instead of 4 draws, I would be like, you know what, they might just do enough to
Hmm.
stay up. If they can, they might be the true crap invincibles. They get 38 points, 38 draws.
Which isn't probably enough, might be enough to save them.
That's what I'm saying. I think you might think they have a chance, but they've already lost 3 games, and I think that's those 9 points, they're done. That's what I figure.
Hmm.
So, um, they got these were the names that they brought in after the transfer window: Stephen Ward, George Boyd, Michael Keane, who I know he's on loan from Manchester United, and Nathaniel Chaloba on loan from Chelsea. So, I mean, there's a reason. I mean, every once in a while, loan players do something like Lukaku last year, who is now doing nothing. But uh, if you're counting on your of that quality anyway. I mean, Michael Keane was
Hmm.
not like it's not like a Cleverley loan where like okay, Cleverley's been in the first time team, maybe he needs some time to like get things sorted. but Michael Keane is not there. So
Mhm.
I don't know if we should go ahead and move on, except to say that they play Everton tomorrow, which I guess is, if Everton ends up losing that, if Burnley somehow
Yeah,
wins, then maybe we, really start to talk about Everton being in that relegation battle.
yeah, and I mean, any win that those bottom three teams get, I mean, at this point, catapult them to tied with, I think, Everton, and I don't know if anybody else is at 7 points, but gets them out of that mix quick at this point. So, I mean, they get a result maybe against Everton. They get lucky the next game. I mean, I don't know who they play the next game after that. I know they have Arsenal coming up, but I mean, it could happen, and it could change that they get some points and they're out of it for a while. But we just got to see a drastic improvement of form for me to even believe that's going to happen.
Yeah. So let's move on to Leicester, which I think is more interesting. So my comment was that they are very confident, and I think based on, well, you said two, so obviously, so based upon that, your impression was, well, they're also pretty good, which is to say they also have reason to be confident.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I should say this.
so they've got some big name players and some guys that I know. Nick Powell and Tom Lawrence are both on loan from Manchester United. Um, so Danny Simpson is apparently their second best player according to QPR, and Cambiaso, who is 34, is apparently their best player on FIFA 15. I don't know if Cambiaso can. I don't think he hasn't been playing every game. I don't know if that's just resting him or just normal squad rotation. I don't know the deal with that, but
And he
um,
was he was I mean new, relatively new, and they had a good kind of club atmosphere coming into the season from being promoted last season. They seem like a good team, and anytime you add a new player in there, regardless of if they're the best player or just an average player, that takes some time to get used to. And so maybe their team right now is better without him necessarily because he's still getting acclimated
right.
to working with everybody, and maybe that's why he's not featuring as much. Maybe he's just 34. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I know that I remember predicting them, like 10th or 11th, somewhere up there, and that was kind of a something that was different from you and the guest that we had on was I just like the way that they play. They're defensive. They know their positions. They know how to play well. They know how to um, not that they know their positions, but they know how to be in position with other people. They're very great defensive set. Uh, I was kind of surprised that they gave up 3 goals to Man U. I understand, but then they came back and won that game 5-3. Uh, the 2-0 Chelsea loss was it's Chelsea the best team in the league at this point. That's to happen, and they're only lost by 2. They played Everton very well, played Arsenal very well, but then they lose to Crystal Palace 2-0. Like that's striking compared to the rest of their results. And I put a comment, are they the new Everton? Because Everton last year, the year before, if not both, would always play the top teams extremely well, but then find a way to lose against the bottom team. And it would just be so unexplainable that you can play so well against good teams and get a draw, but then lose to like last season Sunderland or somebody like that. So I don't know. That Crystal Palace score is just throwing me off, and it worries me a little bit. But they at least show up for big matches. They're confident, and they've gotten some pretty good results.
I mean, if they are the new Everton, Everton qualified for the Europa League, so
Yeah.
that's
So,
pretty
I
good
mean,
stuff.
I wouldn't put them at that high. I don't believe, but uh, I mean, I still can stick with my 10th prediction and feel pretty confident about that.
So I had them at 14. I didn't really have them in the relegation fight. So I was sort of in between you and Nate. And Nate thought that they that they weren't going to be very good. So we should say that was before some of their transfers. So the transfers that we talked about just a minute ago, those were all post-preview transfers. So they didn't have Cambiaso, they didn't have Simpson. So according to FIFA, those are their two best players that they didn't have when Nate made that prediction.
That's true.
So all of us, I think, if they slid up a little bit, we can be, somewhat. And Nick Powell is good. He hasn't seen a lot of time at Leicester, but Nick Powell is, or at least he's supposed to be good. I mean, who knows when these young kids, but like he's supposed to be the real deal. I don't know about Tom Lawrence. I don't know anything about him. So, but Nick Powell is supposed to be good. So now their upcoming fixtures are Swansea, Southampton, and Liverpool. I don't know if at this point you want to say anything about Liverpool. That's not until, those weren't in order. I just put it on there because I thought you might have something to say. That's still over. It's basically a month and a half out, so I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
Well, we'll see based on their results against Swansea and Southampton and other teams that are currently in the top half of the table to see kind of where them and Liverpool are at December 2nd.
So I've got some notes in here about the QPR charity work, but basically I want to move on to our point of, we both think they're going to be relegated. You just can't, unless, again, something drastic happened, they just are not making it happen right now. Mm-hmm. They're just getting obliterated by teams.
Yeah.
They do have 4 points, so they're obviously not getting obliterated by Sunderland and Stoke. That's where they get their 4 points. But 4-0 to Spurs, who got their own backside handed to them today by City, and 4-0 to United. And this was before United actually remembered how to play football.
So yeah, it's that 4-0 game for Man U was the game where I was like, maybe they can do something, and then I thought, well, maybe QPR is just that bad.
Yeah, and the reality is probably somewhere a little bit in the middle, but QPR is definitely bad.
Yeah, and some of their transfers, like I don't know enough about what's going on with them.
They're in serious. I don't know if they're still in serious debt. I think they are, but they had a bunch of financial penalties levied against them because they basically broke the financial fair play rules in the championship, and somehow that doesn't disqualify you from getting promoted. I don't know how bad, if that's ever an issue. I don't think they had points to look at it. I think they were just we'll just put you further in debt by finding you, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But to be fair, I didn't look into it that closely. But they are, some of their transfers are because of their serious debt.
Okay, that makes sense then. I figured there had to be something going on for why the moves that they were making. And they just didn't. One of their post-preview transfers were Jack Robinson from LFC. Wasn't really seeing any much time, and he wasn't ever really going to see much time as a starter. I don't even think he got up on the bench that much. But, they did bring in Sandro, which I was kind of surprised how they were able to do that. But,
they sold Cesar
and Remy, finally got Remy out of there.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just, I would have liked for them to have points deducted, and I think that would have had to have been the case. I don't know who decides that. If it's UEFA, if it's FIFA, if it's the football.
Well, it's definitely not FIFA, but these were not UEFA financial fair play. If it would be UEFA, it was UEFA financial fair play rules, but FIFA doesn't have any financial fair play rules. Okay. But these were like the FA, I guess the football league financial fair play rules, and apparently, they were fined.
Relegate. To drop points, right?
They were fined £40 million,
Good gracious.
and if they don't pay the £40 million, so it's basically a luxury tax. I
Okay.
guess that's what we would call it in the U.S.
Yeah, if it was comparable to Major League Baseball and
The NBA.
in the NBA.
I don't know if it's like a dollar for dollar. Like in the NBA, it's dollar for dollar luxury tax. But
Mhm.
so it was a £40 million fine, which I don't know is like $4 billion gazillion. It's like $70 million or something. It's a lot of dollars. And but if they don't pay that fine, then they could get relegated to the conference. So I mean, basically being relegated, like maybe they should just like peace out and like just go back down to the championship because they don't want to go down to the conference. Which,
Yeah,
if they don't get the money, then that's what's gonna happen.
yeah. I mean, but if it's that bad, I mean, we could see a deal where they just start free falling leagues.
That's true too.
So they could eventually go back down to the third tier, um, because
Well, the third tier would just be. I mean, that's not even conference. That's
no, that
one.
that's League One.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that they could easily work their way back up from the conference, but once they get down to League One, I don't know how far they could get to. So I think best case scenario, not best case scenario, but I think maybe in both situations, League One's where they're going to end up. So I would just take the season, see if you can salvage next year and pay that 40 million.
Yeah, but I mean, why then? I guess maybe the Sandro link is like they don't want to completely look like they're giving up because if they completely look like they're giving up, then the fans aren't going to come, and then that's lost revenue there. That's the only thing I can figure.
Yeah, I mean we're hey guys, we're trying. We were trying. We tried too hard, and now we're getting suffering for it. So we're going to keep trying. I don't know. I mean, that's an ugly situation.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, you know, it could be worse in that a lot of the South American clubs, like they don't play their players on time, which
It's
is
true.
if they're going in debt but they're paying their players, then that's just I don't know. It seems like they're somewhat taking care. They didn't do a good job planning their financial responsibilities, but at least they're like taking care of their financial obligations rather than just being like, oh yeah, we're not going to give you money.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, well, I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about QPR or about anything, or should we go ahead and call it a day?
Well, I will say it doesn't look like it's getting any easier for them with Liverpool tomorrow, Chelsea on the first, and Man City on the 8th.
Yeah.
Not looking like it's going to get any easier for them.
Yeah, that's a rough draw. So remember again, folks, that you can support us at patreon.fcss, and you can talk to us on Twitter at bonesaw_origins or at Doug Sportazine. But for now, this has been almost said tenth. This has been the Free Culture Sports Show.